Uh, Labą dieną. Ar visi mane girdit, nes man sunku suvokti garsą, kadangi jis eina iš kažkur tai. Tai jeigu visi girdit, tada puiku, jeigu ne, tai sakykit, pradėsim garsėti po truputį. Ačiū visiems susirinkusiems. Tiesą pasakius, esu šiek tiek sutrikęs, nes šis įvykis toksai greičiausiai pirmas, bent jau mano gyvenime. Dėl to, kaip ten bebūtų, vis tiek stengsimės viską kalbėti sklandžiai. Turime šiandien neeilinį įvykį, Miss Vanderojos parodos apdovanojimų atidarimą. Tai, kaip žinote, paroda vyksta kas 2 metus. Iš šiuose kraštuose dar nėra atvykus. Mums pasisekė, kad į Kauno architektūros festivalį, kuris taip pat vyksta pirmą kartą, tokio dydžio įvykis Lietuvoje irgi pirmą kartą architektūrinis turiu omeny. Mums pasisekė, kad mums pavyko atvežti tokią parodą. Mes turime šiokią tokią diskusiją. Tai turime svečių atvykusių iš fondo, turime architektų nominuotų pagrindiniam prizui. Diskusija vyks anglų kalba. Tikiuosi, kad daugmaž visi suprasit, apie ką kalba, nes greičiausiai, kad daugiau bus paveikslų negu kalbų. Ir bandykime tada pradėti. Nebijokite klausti klausimų po to. Po diskusija vyks apie valandą, o po to prie vyno taurės visi atidarysime šią puikią parodą. So, ladies and gentlemen. Dear honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, architects, friends of architecture, and all who came to this event, welcome. It is indeed a great pleasure for me that you are here in Žalgiris Arena in this special occasion of the opening event of the International KAFe Kaunas Architecture Festival 2013. Such event in such scale is the first in Kaunas and in Lithuania as well. So I am a little bit confused, but we'll try to do everything in the best as we can. And just few things about Architects Festival. It compares approximately 20 events. Duration is approximately 2 months. And the program, you can find it in our journal, and it was published a few weeks ago. Of course, this meeting is actually the first big happening, happening here in Kaunas Architecture Festival. And I would like to mention that it would be impossible to make such a big event, architectural event, without our friends and supporters. Logos of supporters you can find here. And of course, a special thanks is for Žalgiris Arena, for the hospitality and for this excellent place where we are now. But today, actually, today's event has an exceptional importance, not just in Kaunas. There are 2 reasons for its importance. First of all, I think that we have gathered here at the opening of Miss Vanderojos Awards exhibition in Kaunas. This is a very significant event, and of course it takes us to the highest level of European architecture, modern architecture. As you know, The architecture award by Foundation of Miss Mandaroya is the most important and think most influence award and the prize of the European Union for in the field of modern architecture. I think another reason is that exhibition is being opening here in Kaunas city. Kaunas, as you know, always had its mark on Lithuanian architecture map as a city of modern architecture. Kaunas actually is the old city in the confluence of two rivers, and it was mentioned as a Hanseatic city with Baroque, Renaissance or Gothic architecture. Of course, we have some interesting and important architecture from Tsar period, Russian Empire. It's 19th century. Actually, Kaunas was a fortress city. But for us, for our generation, Kaunas has become an important city because of the role which he played in 20th century as a capital city of Lithuania. And speaking in the language of architecture, of course, it's an emblematic city for Bauhaus architecture in Lithuania. Okay, as you see, I'm not alone here. And I'm most happy to introduce my friends and colleagues. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ivan Blasi. Ivan Blasi actually is an architect, and he is representative of Miss Mandaroya Foundation based in Barcelona, Spain. And he is coordinator of the Breaking New Ground discussion in all Miss Mandaroya events. Yeah. Also, Ivan has been teacher at the Barcelona Architecture Center. He is a professor at the Fundació Politècnica de Catalunya since 2005, and concentrating on 20th century architecture and contemporary architecture in Europe. He has collaborated in several programs of the Fundació Miss Mandaroya since year 2000, and of course with Dr. Momo since 2007. As an architect, he founded his own studio called 100 to Architectura, in the year 2000, which focuses on building restoration and urban issues. Wim Menten, architect from Belgium. He was nominated as a finalist for the Miss Mandaroya Award 2013. Jūratė Tutlytė, associate professor from Vytauto Magnus University. The field of her interest and research is modern architecture in Soviet period in Lithuania. Yes, and also all modern things and modern architecture now, what happened not just in Lithuania, but as well in Europe and in the world, I think. And Audrys Karalius, architect. And he is Miss Mandaroya Foundation expert here in Lithuania actually, of course, he is Karalius and has exclusive right for choosing projects for the award, not just from Lithuania, but from all Europe at all. And of course, he known as editor of most influential architecture magazine Pilotas LT. So, dear friends, I would like to start our discussion, and I addressing each of you some certain questions. What is coded under the title Breaking New Ground? As you know, our discussion calls Breaking New Ground. How we should understand this? This question I would like to ask Ivan. And also would like to address you with a question of how things are arranged and organized in practical terms within the process of selecting the best European buildings representing modest architecture as Ms. van der Rohe. So please show.
Where should I go?
Actually, I can say that Ivan spent already a few days here in Lithuania, and he, by himself, he put all this exhibition to the right place. Of course, our volunteers, thank you very much for the help. Without the volunteers, they are architect students from not just students. Without them, it would be impossible to do nothing.
Okay, so thank you very much. Labas vakaras. I would like to start thanking the Kaunas Architecture Festival. Of course, its director and the whole team who has, together with the European Commission, made it possible to organize this exhibition of the 2013 edition of the European Prize for Contemporary Architecture, Mies van der Rohe Award here in Kaunas, specifically in this splendid arena by Milunas, a project that was in fact nominated in the 2013 edition of the prize, and also specifically this year in which Lithuania is holding the presidency of the Council of the European Union. And why not say it as well, in this place in which Joan Plaza last year helped the team Zalgiris be the winners, the champions of the Lithuanian Cup or League. I want to thank the European Commission for entrusting that foundation with the organization of this prize, and also the members of the steering committee, namely the Lithuanian Architecture Association, and also all the members of the advisory board, namely in this case Audrys Karalius, for their support. I would also like to express, of course, my gratitude to the work of the jury. And so we will begin listening
I think so. It's many interesting things to play with
some of their comments when selecting or thinking or speaking about the works
I like it for this.
in their first meeting, when they had nearly 400 works to work about. So we can listen to ourselves a little bit.
It's really atypical. Yes.
It's also a very important program for Europe at this moment.
Yes.
And there were some very good architects taking part, and this just was by far the best strategy.
But on the other hand, I think it's also talking about Mies' paradigm.
This reduction of elements, this fragility crushes an order of colors and shadows.
Who would defend it?
This view is actually incredible from the outside.
They should keep both. Of course, they won't be both.
To have what?
To have light in what we call a museum.
You know, light like this in a museum condition is interesting, but it's utterly unfunctional for a space.
I defend.
Also, in fact, the way they've sorted out the entrance situation, which you can't see on the photos or the plans, is also...
today it was...
So the Mies van der Rohe Foundation is celebrating this year its 25th anniversary of the award, sorry, not of the foundation itself, which was first celebrated only 2 years after the reconstruction of the pavilion that Mies van der Rohe originally built in the city of Barcelona in 1929. So it was completed in 1986, this reconstruction. And still today, it's a genuine symbol whose modern and innovative character still orientates the European Union Mies van der Rohe Award. This year, the winner has been the Harpa, the Reykjavik Concert Hall in Iceland and Conference Center, by Batterate Architects, Henning Larsen Architects, and Studio Olafur Eliasson. According to the jury, it's considered, or they considered it as a myth of a nation that has consciously acted in favor of a hybrid cultural building during the middle of the ongoing Great Recession. So it is, we'll see some images right now, an iconic building that promotes this dialogue between the city of Reykjavik, and the building's inner life, giving an identity to the city through an interdisciplinary collaboration. We should also remember that the architects come from Denmark, but also they're from Iceland and also the Faroe Islands. We're going to listen to Villaret as he was speaking about the prize when they had selected the 5 finalists, and they were going to, after 3 or 4 weeks, going to visit these 5 finalists in order to choose the winner. So at this moment, he was speaking generally about the works that had been presented to this prize.
Today it was, of course, a great moment, because the 25th year, more or less, that this prize is being dealt with. And the debate we had today was a debate about how, let's say, the world is changing. The world is becoming, let's say, more or less one big city, and the issues we are dealing with are, I would say, more than ever, how the metropolis will develop. So we were discussing about 350 projects where the debate was about how they could contribute to the change of the cities we are living in. What is the social implication of the work? It was really important to see that a lot of works are not only works by one architect, but that a lot of works are works which are done in a kind of collaboration. That was one thing we saw. Second, we saw that the works we have selected are not only works which are done somewhere with it's a solo one project work, but work which is in relationship to the development and the change of the metropolis. It's a prize which was established 25 years ago. It was a prize which is capturing the name of Mies. The Mies Pavilion was the starting point of the prize. Let's say a work which was a radical work where Mies was taking, let's say, risk. It was a work which was not, of course, immediately accepted by everyone. So we believe very strongly that the work we looked at today should be able to create not only a debate now, but should also be able to create a debate in 10, 20 or 50 years.
So the prize this year has been for the Harpa, but there was also a special mention, as since 2001 there has been, for a project in Madrid by Langarita Navarro, which is the Red Bull Academy, and 4 finalists, which are the Market Hall in Ghent. We'll hear about it right now, but also by Robert and Dime and Marie-José Van Hee, Superkielen in Copenhagen by Big, but also Superflex and Topotec 1. The House for Elderly People near Lisbon in Alcácer do Sal by the architects Aires Mateus, and the Metropole Parasol in Sevilla, you will see, by Jürgen Meyer. You will be seeing some images right now about of these projects, and of course you will see the models and more information in the exhibition. Lithuania first participated in this prize in the Mies Award in 1998, and since then there have been 42 nominated works, and we're still waiting to see if one year there's a winner of the prize. Among these works, for example, there is this remia, but there's also the Kaunas airport, and also the Library of the Medicine University here in Kaunas. For the first time, we will be able to see in the exhibition that we are showing around Europe a part of it which shows the works of the previous 12 winners and the 6 special mentions. These projects, together with the other 40 works of the 2013 edition, represent the state of architecture in Europe today. We could say the best architecture, of course decided by a specific jury, that has been produced in Europe in the last 2 years, in the previous 2 years. And of course this will become the architectural heritage, our European architectural heritage of tomorrow. They all share a common commitment to combine and incorporate interdisciplinary knowledge, improvements and issues including technical, structural, material and aesthetic concerns. So the prize during all these 25 years that we were speaking about has been highlighting works with symbolic and pedagogical values to provide a better understanding of the importance of architecture in the construction of European cities and also landscapes. So the Mies van der Rohe Foundation this year is asking itself, how should juries be composed? How should we change or improve that? What do juries judge when judging architecture? How is quality valued? What criteria can be used when judging, when adapting these, or seeing or discussing these qualities? And it's doing it through these dialogues that are taking part in these different cities where the exhibition is presented, and which is called Breaking New Ground. Breaking New Ground as a way to see if it is necessary to break, to start again from zero, or what possibilities are there right now in architecture? What's architecture's role today? Its potential? How the competitions differ from public to private stands and so on in different areas in Europe, which is the effect of legislation. We see that different legislations and different possibilities in different areas also allow different kinds of architectures to be produced in different areas. And also present-day strategies, which could mean from the sizes of architecture bureaus, their collaborations with other fields, such as engineering, artists, and so on. And finally, all this should aim towards a better understanding on how architecture quality can be judged, not only by us. You have seen that the jury is composed of architects, some of them who work in architecture and build, but also some which are into the theoretical field. But of course, in architecture, there's also somebody or some people who are very important. Basically, the client. There's also politicians who can help a lot in making certain decisions. And of course, society, all of us who use these buildings. So I am sure that this festival that today begins, and that we're very proud and very happy to be here, will allow a better knowledge of the importance of the role of architecture in Lithuania throughout Europe. Labai ačiū.
Okay, thank you, Ivan, for your interesting showing. What are the ideas that we are working best as representation of contemporary architecture in heritage site? I'd like to ask this question to Wim, because your project was built in a very historical place. It's in medieval city in the center of Ghent. As I know, in two-stage competition, it was between 1996 and 2005. Your team proposed your own program for this building. It's not actually a real building, but it's excellent in my point of view. actually all nominated projects have a strong public order. But between 5 nominators, your project is, in my point of view, a little bit different. I could say in scale and especially on function of this building. Would you please share your ideas about your project and about actually the role of contemporary architecture in heritage area? What do you think? How should it be in your project? Actually, you try to do something in not so modern way as everybody think, but you try to make this building in very soft and nice place. So, would you please to explain your project?
Yes, I will. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank the organization for inviting us to give this presentation to you all. Thank you for having so many people. I didn't expect it when I was preparing this. So I am Wim Menten. I'm working for Robrecht & Daam Architecten almost 7 years. And for 5 years I was a project architect for the market hall. I will first show you a small video which a colleague of mine has made half a year ago as introduction. So, as introduced, the project we obtained the commission by two following competitions. And so Robrecht & Daam Architecten, together with Marie-José van Hey, they won the competition and realized the project. First, I'll introduce you a little bit to the city center of Ghent, which has indeed a historical point. Indeed. Afterwards, the project itself, for more or less a good overview as well as in detail. And afterwards, I will take you with some photographs through the projects, so you can feel and see how we realized it. But first, this is a map of the city center, the historical city center, where you can see here the market hall is placed in between the 3 historical towers. Here on the left-hand side, the St. Nicholas Church, the Belfry, also a UNESCO heritage, and on the right-hand side, the St. Bavo Cathedral. The project itself, the market hall itself only is a small part of the 24,000 square feet of paving and new squares that we designed. For instance, here we have the new event plaza, the corn market. Here there is the Emil Brown Square, where the market hall is placed. And all the connecting streets in between have also been designed and followed up by our office. Note here that next to the market hall we have implemented a new park for people also to be gathering. But first, the historical frame. Here again, this is a historical map. Here again you see the three towers, the cathedral, the belfry and the church. And also this one is the city hall where the administration of the city of Ghent is placed, which is also a historical building. So here what is remarkable in this map is the fabric, the historical fabric, the urban fabric is quite dense as it was created and built in the Middle Ages, with narrow streets and also narrow marketplaces. It is so that during the 20th century, namely in 1913, this building block was being demolished to free the space around the St. Nicholas Church. So it was also in the time when the World Exhibition took place in Belgium. About 50 years later, in the 1960s, the city council decided to also demolish this city block to make place for a new office block, a new administration center for in annex to the existing one, but that building never was built. Here you have an aerial view with the two towers and the fabric of that time. I'm showing this picture because for us it took and it gave us a lot of inspiration. Here you see the existing. Oh, I'm sorry. Here you see the existing city hall, and it's the poultry market. It's the market on the Emil Brown Square, and it's remarkable that the two facades, the two longitudinal facades, are having a kind of tension in between them, which creates actually the fact that there is a square. At the end, there is also the tension gets higher, it gets narrow, so it builds up the tension in the urban fabric. So after demolishing the two housing blocks, the city of Ghent was actually left with a problem. This square in the middle of the historic center of Ghent was a really open space, non-defined, with no real straight or well-proportioned facades. So during the time it was only used as a car park, and people were calling it the Gap of Ghent. It was right in the city center where nobody really knew what to do with. So this is a picture of how it used to be about 5 years ago. And then in 1996, we made a first preliminary sketch in overlay of the historical map. And it shows that we placed a new volume right in the middle of this open gap. But it was in that way, in that manner, and with that such great attention to the scale of the market hall, the proportions of the market hall on itself, but also in relation to creating new squares. So the open urban fabric, non-definable, was again back in order, you can say, or that was at least the proposal 17 years ago. Also, that proposal already had the park. And when I say that we took great attention of placing this volume right in the middle of the square, we also related the position to the historical context. In that way that the facades of the market hall not only gave new scale to the urban fabric, but also created new frames, new perspectives to those historical buildings. For instance, the longitudinal facade, when viewing from over here, frames perfectly the new, the old belfry. When coming from over here, also the short facade of the market hall is guiding you to the oldest part of the city hall. This is a first aerial view of the situation today, where you can see the new squares. And for us, when designing the building, we always had in mind to have a building that was not only in an urban way there at that place, but also meant something for the people of the city of Ghent. For us, the volume placing the volume there was also an act of getting people together to meet, to see performances or concerts right in the middle of the historical center. And the translation in architecture, which will I explain later, for us started by thinking of this volume as a wooden shrine, a piece of wooden roof where people could hide or could be at ease and enjoy whatever function or event was happening. Just plan more in detail. With here the park. The park contains 13 trees, and it's actually designed as a park that is like half a level lower than the surrounding streets and squares, and in that way it is circumcised. How to say? It's surrounded with walls. So you are more in a distance to the activities of the street level. The park slopes down and opens up and goes down to a lower level, a level which is underneath the square. Maybe I'll also talk a bit more about the plan of the market hall itself. As you saw on this picture, we designed the facade, the end facade, in relation to the existing facade of the city hall, and by placing them in the mirror way, we created a diagonal in the plan, which also guided you underneath the market hall through the squares. So this is a plan of the functions underneath the market hall, where you have here the footprint, the 4 columns on which the market hall is stated. Here we have implemented a new restaurant, which has a terrace facing south and also in relation to the green. There are some changing rooms for artists, a public toilet and public bicycle sheds. A vertical section through the market hall, which shows that the square is running underneath the market hall and is actually a roof of the urban space. For us, the design also contained to maximize the opportunities of the existing levels just by using the existing slope of the square and giving a counter slope in the green in the park. We created the new level underneath. note, very important here, is that the height of the market hall is very consciously measured, not only in its proportions in the architecture, but also in relation to the surroundings. So the height for us, I'm sorry, it goes somewhere. The height for us is related to the buildings and the houses, the lower houses next to the hall, and in that way it has a modest relation to the three historical towers. And now I will go more into detail of the architecture. As it is a new piece of architecture, we really wanted to have the materials that were used to be brought together in a certain refined way. In that way, that we wouldn't make architecture at a historical way, but using materials in that way that the relation to the context and the historical monuments would still be with a certain value. So here you have the four columns, which contain elevators going down to the lower level, as well as technical shafts and chimneys from the lower level through the roof. For instance, we also implemented an open fire space, which can be used in winter when we have Christmas markets, for instance. The city hall, the market hall, is in dimension a volume of 40 meters by 15 wide. So this is like 15 meters wide, and the span is made by a steel structure which is totally developed in this dark area. And on the inside and outside of the steel structure, we cladded the facades with wood. On the inside, it's oak wood. On the outside, we used afromosea. On the outside, we also protected the wood with the glazed panels, and we also designed about 1,600 roof lights. Those are the little white spot roof lights which filter the light to get the light into the market hall. These are some details of how we engineered these different parts together. So we, I don't know if I have to go deeper into this, but this is the glass facade, the wooden outside cladding, the steel structure, and the oak interior, also in horizontal. This is a longitudinal point of view, where you can see that by having the mirrored facades, there is a difference in height of the top of the roof, which also creates a tension in the facade. And now I'll take you through the project by showing you some pictures of the building itself and its context, as well as at the end I will show some pictures of how the citizens and the city of Ghent uses the building at the moment. So we start in the green, in the park area, where you go down to the lower level with the restaurant, and note the relation of the scale of the new building to the high vertical monuments. Here on your left-hand side, the restaurant, with the view of the choir to the view of the choir of the St. Nicholas Church. We go up the stairs onto the square, where you can see that the market hall is guiding your perspective to the belfry. And when approaching the market hall, you can see how new architecture is taking space in this urban fabric, but still the total presence of the facade makes that the volume is present as well. Not only this, but note also the near distance. I'm sorry, this is not the way it should go. So the distance between the new market hall and this corner house, where there is a tension built up and where the new frame to the market, the city hall here at the back is brought in. Then finally underneath the market hall, we were very pleased when the contractors were realizing the construction. We were very pleased to see that actually the inside really came out as an urban interior because of the aspect of the wood that we used. And it makes it not really very hard, but very pleasant to look at. Here on the picture, by coincidence, there was a musician band playing, which is also nice when you walk through the city and all of a sudden you approach the market hall and you hear from a distance the music. This is the poultry market, the new poultry market with the new facades. People gathering underneath the construction. Here the direct relation of the double-gabled rooftops as in relation to the context. The relation of the park, which is lower than the street level. New frames being created where this part of the belfry building was added in history. In history it was added after the belfry, and that's why it also comes out as a new frame. It's a frog perspective from the roof with the valley gutter in a diagonal way guiding you above your head through the squares. We also made this structure that it was actually usable. So we provided the structure with infrastructure where sound installations and lighting installations could be hung up, and where organizations could do whatever they wanted to do. And there's also a possibility of hanging several parts onto the roof. This is an aerial view from the belfry where you can have a view of the people enjoying the sun in the grass. More detail of the glazed cladding over the wood, and I invite you to go and see it, but actually the glass is like a kind of a chameleon effect. When you pass by the building, the reflection turns its way and you can see how the building is changing. And then when the sun goes down, there's the artificial light, and for us it was quite a search to have in daytime the light inside, but at night we wanted the light to shine out, but not in a way that it was, again, not too hard, but that we had a real soft lightning underneath the square. These are some pictures of people gathering, having dinner. Always funny how to see that people want their own house, use to be created also in urban space. Or when people get married and use your project as a background. Here, the first time that the open fireplace was in use. So I like to finish my presentation and my answer to your question by this image of Piero della Francesca, who also, it took for him also a long time to paint this painting, also 16 years, as long as we were working on it. I think it's a very nice picture to end my lecture.
Yeah. Thank you again for your excellent project. Actually, I like it very much. Thank you. So,
You're welcome.
I'd like to ask the same question to Jūratė. How do you understand breaking new ground? Because, you know, architecture usually connect or disconnect people. You know, it's sometimes new architecture, especially in historical sites, disconnect people because they have different meanings about architecture. What do you think about breaking new ground?
Thank you, Gintaras, for giving the words, and welcome everybody. I would like to pose the question and to give the questions again. I mean, what does that mean indeed to be contemporary, to be new, to be ingenious, to be innovative in architecture today? What does that mean? Is it something that leads to new technologies, new ways of seeing, thinking? Is it less, is more still here, or less aesthetics, more ethics? Yeah. Speaking in the words of Ms. van der Rohe and Massimiliano Fuchsas. I think at the moment, I see that we talk about architecture, we discuss about architecture so much and so widely as never ever before. Because of new media, we have so many blogs devoted to architecture, so many media, social media, also groups of people discussing architecture. So many opinions of what is good and what is bad and what is not, that this also even threatens the architectural critics and architects, I think, in some way. But does that mean that we make better architecture today than we did in the past, or is it that there is more good architecture than ever before? I would like to refer to the idea of the grand dame of architectural criticism. It's Ada Louise Huxtable, who once stated that no critical debate can actually shape or change talent and conviction of architects. And she also expressed her doubts about influence of architectural debates or criticism on the art of architecture, to understand the quality of art. But she pointed that what really matters is the ability to discover a complex phenomena behind it, from piece of art, architecture, to life itself. And I think this is a very crucial point where architects, thinkers, writers, and public and society comes together and are joined together to share their experiences. We, of course, can argue about aesthetics of architecture. I mean, there is no dispute of taste, as the proverb says, but I don't think we can avoid concluding that architecture should serve, or good architecture, or progressive architecture should serve life, and even more. It not only serve life, but it enriches it. As Daniel Libeskind wrote beautifully in his book, I would read his idea. That's what I love about architecture, he says. If it's good, it's about every color in the spectrum of life. If it's bad, the colors fade away entirely. So life today is very complex, and it's very fastly changing. I mean, new technologies, new media change the way we live, we communicate, we socialize, and I think this is what is so important for architecture of the future. It's a social, cultural context of society, and even more than the new technology. And this is why perhaps the future of architecture doesn't depend on architects only. I would think that because we need so much in-depth insights of what the society is, probably we need more researchers and more scientists to come together to work on the field. And I also think that because the public is are giving the tools to be so active in not only the architectural discourse, but also into the process of architecture. So this is an obligation of public too, to be involved in the public process of the architecture, especially when it deals with the public spaces, public building, public housing, and urban planning. So I think that is what makes this event of today so important for all of us. Not only we can see it as a platform for architects to bring their ideas and for public to share their ideas, but also to look deeper. As we all know, architecture is best reflection of society itself. So when we look at it, we look at ourselves. And in that way, we can discover or try to find out what the buildings of the best European architects tell us, about architecture, about Europe, who we are, who Europe is or want to be. And that is why I think it is here for public, for all of us to think about life, to think about what we want and how do we want to live, to play, to work, to reside in the future, because this changes architecture, and this is the future of architecture, not for the sake of new architecture as such, but of architecture for new life or new ways of life. And I'm really impressed with your project, and I strongly believe that your project shows us how architecture can enrich, indeed, the life of citizen. So thank you greatly.
Yeah, okay. I now understood this question how we can achieve the quality in architecture. And of course there are different ways. But how participation of Lithuanian projects in Miss van der Rohe Award affects Lithuanian design? This question I would like to ask to Audrys. I can find that a lot of nominated projects in this award, they won some kind of competition, local or internationally, but a lot of them it's architectural competitions. What do you think? What international competition bring to local architecture, and not just for architecture, but for local society, because quality of architecture is very important.
Yes, very good question. Everybody hears now that wine is already in action, and little by little the resources are reducing. So I will try to be very fast and laconic, because Jūratė was so pretty and so brilliant in describing what we must do in a modern life now, that I will add only a few words maybe. First of all, of course, I want to apologize we maintenance, because you know it's not a good way to crash Belgium today in the basketball field, but I want to say it's really not a revenge for your winning project, you know, and Lithuanians know shortlisted in this, you know, the main architectural items of the Europe. But next time, I expect that Belgium and Lithuania has now two very good directions to collaborate, and of course one of the most important things is the good result, result of achieved not only by you know in ideas or conceptual competitions, but in realizing the real project, and in that point we have a big gap, having in mind our social money, our social so-called competitions, where the cheapest is the best. If our basketball should be built on that fundament, so all cousins of our prime ministers, and you know members of the parliament were in the national team of the basketball, and I believe that we will reach no championship at all. So we must take lessons from our basketball system, that the best must be the winner, and we must reconstruct our competition system totally, because it's not funny anymore. Yeah. And you know, this how to say, washing money system is not effective at all. And I am very glad that I'm on board of independent experts of Miss van der Rohe Foundation, and it's, you know, it's a great school for me. Working since the year of 2000, and it's like invisible Academy of Architecture trying to recognize the best projects, the best architectural and in the point of social life effective projects. And I'm very glad that my recommendation, one of my recommendations of that year, the academic library in Katowice, which was designed by our Polish friends
Strange name.
Dariusz, Herman, Smerzhevsky, Piotr, and Subalski, Lucas. They are among 40 the best. So Lithuanians have the best or the most effective example because the Polish neighbors are already here. So I think the next year, when the next, Miss Van der Rohe competition year, it will be 2015, when we will build a real house on the edge of the water, because you know that festival has a flag, city and the water, and we will use clever and reasonably our social funds. So I believe that we will be in.
Okay. Thank you, Audrey. Okay.